Hey, Shark fans, it's Melinda with another episode of Heard It on the Shark. And today in the studio with me, I have Mr. Clark Ritchie, who is the owner of Six Shooter Studio in Baldwyn. The last time he was in the studio with us, he mentioned making a movie at Six Shooters, and it piqued my interest, so we had him back. Thank you, Clark, for coming over again to talk to us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Now, this conversation we're having is happening before the production, but it will air after the production of this movie. So we're going to have to talk about it before it happens.
You're going to hear all the excitement of pre-production after the work of production is actually finished.
Right,
So,
not the exhaustion of afterwards.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that's probably good timing. All right, now tell us all about this movie.
over the course of my life, I've sort of developed from one little entertainment activity to another. And it's culminated now at my age here that I have written a movie, and we have raised the funds for the movie, and we're going to shoot a movie right here in North Mississippi. It's called Mysterious Circumstance, The Death of Meriwether Lewis. I'm a great history fan. I love history. I love Westerns, and this sort of merges the two together. Meriwether Lewis, the explorer of Lewis and Clark fame, was killed on the Natchez Trace in 1809. The official story was suicide, but there's a lot of conspiracy theories and rumors and things that have come down through the ages about that and how things just didn't quite add up. I've read about all of those theories, and I tried to weave them all into one story and came up with a pretty good screenplay. It was good enough to attract some talent to it, and we're glad of that, and so we're headed towards making a movie.
Now, what section of the trace did he die on?
He actually was killed near Hohenwald, Tennessee. That's north of the Tennessee River, and there's a park up there now. It's the Meriwether Lewis Park, and his actual death site, his grave, is still there on the Natchez Trace. He's there on the Natchez Trace. So it's one of the greatest mysteries of all the Natchez Trace stories. And there was a time in the history of Mississippi when we were the far west, and you don't really hear that these days, but from a period of about the Revolutionary War until the Chickasaw Session in the 1830s, Mississippi had the taverns and the saloons and the Indian battles and the explorers and all the famous people running up and down the Natchez Trace and battling and fighting and gunfights and knife fights and all that stuff and settling the country. It was happening here. It wasn't out in Texas and Arizona and so forth. It was happening in Mississippi. The Natchez Trace was a main artery for a lot of that because you had Natchez, which was at the time probably one of the wealthiest per capita cities in America. I've heard that it was. I can't verify that. And you had Natchez was the jumping off point to get to New Orleans. New Orleans was a shipper around the world. Then Nashville was just developing, and this Chickasaw Trail from Natchez to Nashville was the only way that travelers could go up and down. So we were like the superhighway. It came right through Mississippi. And you had famous people like Andrew Jackson and Aaron Burr and James Audubon and Meriwether Lewis just traversing this Natchez Trace. And I think Mississippians have lost any idea that actually happened here. You don't hear that in the history books or in the history classes these days. But as a student of history, I think it's a time period in our history that is just rich with stories and characters that all sort of tie together. And so I plucked the one about Meriwether Lewis out and wrote a screenplay about it. We got some great actors lined up to join us in this thing.
Now, are they a secret? Do you have to keep that secret for now?
I don't think so. I've already announced them on Facebook, most of them. But our biggest attachment to our project is John Schneider, who, as everyone probably knows, was Bo Duke on The Dukes of Hazzard many years ago. He also played Jonathan Kent on Smallville for many years, and he currently is one of the main characters on a Tyler Perry series called The Haves and the Have-Nots. He's an icon that is recognized nationally. If you see John Schneider, you know who that is. And in addition to that, he had 4 number-1 country music singles in the height of his musical career as well. So he's a super attachment to our project, and it really boosted it to a different level than the typical independent film. We playing Meriwether Lewis is a guy named Evan Williams. He's coming to us from L.A. here. Evan was a regular on the Netflix series Versailles, and he just most recently starred in a holiday movie on Netflix called Midnight at the Magnolias. He was the lead in that, and he's got a couple of more leading roles in films coming out on Netflix. I could talk more about the actors. We got a great group there, but you might want to ask me about something else. I can tell you, we got Sonny Marinelli, who's on Vegas and Entourage. He's going to play a role in it. We have former former football great Marcus Dupree, who was the subject of the Willie Morris book, The Courting of Marcus Dupree. He was also, he may not think it's a great title, but the greatest that never was on the ESPN 30 for 30. I met Marcus during our radio show a couple of years ago, and we hit it off, and I asked him to come and play a role in it as well. So it's packed full of great talent.
What's your favorite part of making a movie? I know you've never done anything quite this big, but the steps are going to be the same. What's your favorite part of it?
Well, I'm a mechanical engineer by trade in Mississippi. So I have an analytical side, but then I've been a writer all my life. I've written plays, and I write a column for the newspaper in Baldwyn, and so I have a creative side as well. Play music, so forth. So my favorite part is combining those two sides of myself and producing the film. It's the organization from nothing into something that is entertaining. And that's what I like about it. It's a puzzle that's being worked out to a creative end. That's probably the most complex philosophical answer to any question, but that's the way I feel about it. I think it's not just like, if I had to pick one specific part of the process, it would be the writing of it. But really, it's the whole shebang, you know?
So you're the director of this movie.
That's correct.
And I would imagine that directing a movie has some similarities to directing a play, which is the only thing I know about. Are you a director who sees it in your head and you talk the actors into performing what you've seen in your head, or are you one that just lets it happen?
Well, probably if I was just the director, it would have one answer. But being the writer-director, I'm probably going to steer them a little harder than I would if I was just directing, because actually I know what I meant when I wrote this guy, or I know what I meant when I wrote this scene. So I'm going to probably lead them a little bit. But, you know, I'm dealing with a lot of talented people here, and they can bring things to it that I can't see or haven't conceived of yet. And I'm certainly not going to do anything, not only with my actors to squelch that, but also with my creative people, my director of photography, my first AD, other people who see things. I'm open to good ideas always. And I think you got to be as a director. I think it's very similar to directing a play in a theater. And as you know, I directed Peacemakers, the play I wrote up here in Ripley a couple of years ago. It's very similar to that. You just got all these working pieces and the different resources. You put them together to create something and hope people enjoy it.
All right, and so what is your hope for this movie? What are the award systems for the type of movie you're making?
The Academy Award for Motion Pictures is what I'm shooting for, Melinda.
Okay, you're just shooting for the top.
I'm going for it. I'm going for the Academy Award. I mean, what do you think I'm doing this for? I want to be number one. So I'm going for the Academy Award. And everybody in it, I want them all to win the Academy Award. I will say this. I have a tendency to get a hold of some kind of project, and then I just try to shoot it out the top and make it as big as I possibly can. And I've done that with this movie. And I'm only half joking on that. I'm not joking at all. We want to get it to a theatrical release. That's our goal. And if we can't get it to a theatrical release, we'll go through a film festival circuit with it to try to achieve distribution by people seeing it. We've talked with even some public broadcast organizations that might give it a national release. That might not be the most commercially viable path to take, so that probably is not going to be our first choice. And then ultimately, you know, we take the movie to streaming services and we put it out in that market, both domestically in the United States and globally. So there are a lot of outlets for good content. The first step of the process is we got to make a good movie. If the movie's no good, it's definitely got limitations. But if the movie's really good, you know, our final product, and we think we've put the right creative people and crew together to make a great movie, if the movie's really good, the sky really is the limit. And, you know, I fully expect that we'll get a Hollywood premiere somewhere or a New York premiere of the film.
Clark, I'll be shocked if you don't, because everything you do 110% and just do such a great job. So I fully expect you to win that Academy Award.
Well, a lot of times people win it that first time on that first movie, so that's what I'm sort of hoping for.
All right. I fully expect you to. And as of the airing of this conversation we're having, you will be wrapping up production. So we want to encourage shark fans to look for the movie. Say one more time to them the name of the movie and anything else you want them to take away.
The name of the movie is Mysterious Circumstance, The Death of Meriwether Lewis. We have a Facebook page, and I want everybody to go and like that Facebook page and follow along. You can follow all the path of the movie, how it's progressing. Additionally, we've got Six Shooter Studios Facebook page. You can do the same thing there. You can keep up with what's going on, and it's a lot of exciting developments.
Clark, thank you so much. I know you have no time in your day, but thank you so much for taking time to come over and talk to us about your movie.
Glad to. I appreciate you letting me have this opportunity. I hope people can follow along and enjoy what we do ultimately.
Shark fans, y'all be watching for that Academy Award-winning movie coming out soon, and have a great rest of the day.
This program was pre-recorded at Sun Bear Studio.